Good evening, JMU, and welcome to the JMU Parents Panel live chat for virtual choices. We're very excited to have all of you here. I'm Dr. Tim Miller, the Vice President for Student Affairs, which means I get to work with all of our students, all of our parents, and the entire community. I'm a double Duke and excited to be back at JMU, where I went, back where I love, and back home once again. Excited to have a great panel here with you all tonight. I'm going to ask each of them to go ahead and introduce themselves. We're going to start with the Daughter family.
Hey, super. Thanks, Tim. This is Jim and Kathy Daughter. We're both graduates in the class of 1989.
And our daughter, Ryan, is a class of 2021 Honors College.
All right. Judy and Gavin.
Hi, I'm Gavin Fraser and my wife, Judy Crosby. Our daughter, Georgia Rose, is a junior. She's a dance major in Sharon, Massachusetts.
She's also pre-PT minor and a disability studies minor.
Great. And Gina and Wilson.
Hi, this is Gina and Wilson, friend. We're in Richmond, Virginia. We are very proud alums from the class of 1992. We have two daughters that are Dukes right now. Our oldest daughter, Lori, is a senior Spanish major, and our daughter, Sydney, is in her second year, and she's a sports and recreation major.
All right. Well, I'm gonna dive into a few questions here, folks. Feel free to put your questions in the chat, and we'll take them and I'll sort of distribute them throughout. We've got a good crowd on tonight, so we're excited to have you all here. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to ask all three of you to answer this, and we'll do the same order we just did introductions, just to keep it easy. Why JMU? What was the JMU moment for you all and your students, or what was that moment when you knew this was the place for them, and when and why? Sort of how did you get to that?
Sure. Well, going to JMU a lot as a football season ticket holder, our daughter Ryan and our son Patrick went to JMU a lot growing up as kids, and always viewed it as our university and our school. Some of her high school friends started going to JMU. She spent a weekend there, which just so happened coincided with a college game day, with a lot of activities on campus on the quad. And the next day we saw her and she said, "I'm coming here." And that was a big moment. She also did the Honors College week in the summer after, I guess, between sophomore and junior year.
Yes.
And absolutely fell in love, got to attend some classes, met professors, got to do the dining hall thing, the residence life thing, and she just absolutely fell in love with it. So it's been a great fit for her.
Right. ESPN's a pretty good recruiter. So
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
All right. Judy and Gavin.
So in our case, we're actually from Massachusetts, and we had not heard of JMU until a client approached me about it when my daughter was a junior. Client is a rabid alumni and actually sent her an entire recruiting package, including a t-shirt and a dog and all this other stuff. We got down to the campus February of her junior year, and she said it felt like home. Everybody was friendly. It had the programs that she wanted. It had the benefits of a larger university, so she could have her arts major and her heavy duty sciences for her minor, because she does plan on grad school for PT. And she just, it was like her first choice from the minute we finished the tour.
Okay. Go ahead, Gina and Wilson.
Awesome. So our story is very similar to Jimmy and Kathy in that our kids, with both of us being alums, grew up going up for football games and different things of that nature. But it wasn't until my oldest daughter, when she started looking at colleges and went to a number of schools, and when she went to JMU, to kind of coin something Judy said, she just said it felt like home. The faculty, the staff, the actual, environment just felt very welcoming. My middle daughter was slightly different. It was, from 8th grade on, she always said that was where she was going. So we were actually just making sure she had some other colleges in her back pocket just in case. But both of them absolutely loved the campus, loved the field, loved the faculty, and the programs that then they're majoring in suited them well.
All right, great. And again, folks, as you have questions, please post them in the chat for either Facebook or YouTube, and we'll get those going. I've got plenty, so if you don't have any we'll get there. So talk about, we'll have all of you answer this one too. What has been the best part about being a JMU parent, and what's also been the most challenging for you?
The best part has been, I feel like we just gained 24,000 more family members. It definitely is a family. And once you step on campus, you sort of realize that it's a feeling like no other. It's sort of hard to describe. I guess we affectionately call it the spirit of JMU. It does envelop you. And the most challenging, that's tough. I guess it's trying to let our daughter have her JMU life without constantly reliving our JMU life, because it is such a big part of who we are. And trying to let her have her experience has probably been the hardest thing.
I will tell you this, that she's already told us that her senior year, she's going to be crying every day because that's her last year at JMU. So,
and she's not being dramatic, she said.
I think she's being a little dramatic, but that just kind of tells you about the place and how much she loves it.
Okay. I would say our best part has been watching her grow there, and she's just absolutely blossomed. She is so happy there. She's gone from a somewhat introverted, not very engaged in outside activities child to someone that's really engaged. She became a student ambassador. She gives tours. She's joined a sorority, and she's been with a number of groups. And it's been really good to see her fit in there. It truly has become her home, as she thought it would. Challenges, apart from what everybody in the world is experiencing right now, probably distance. We had one spring break when it was a kind of a planes, trains, and automobiles to get her home because there was a bad storm and the flights were canceled, then the trains were canceled, then the buses were canceled. So that was a struggle, but yeah, small price to pay. It really has been.
Okay.
I think again, the best part is for them has been just the atmosphere, the academic courses that they've taken have been challenging, but then yet rewarding. I think the most challenging has then just been them, and as a parent, having to let go. So recognizing that then, the university is communicating directly with them. They're then having to advocate for themselves. So, where you had been involved a bit more, maybe in high school, really kind of letting go and letting them be the young adults that they are was the most challenging.
Okay. All right. Well, we've got a few questions coming in. So maybe two groups can answer. What are your feelings on your students' online class experience this semester? I'll just say Brady, this is from Brady. How we feel about it for next semester is I'm planning on looking at all these students in the face in the fall. So I'm not going to worry about the fall yet. So let's have the parents answer how it's gone so far, the online transition for them. So we'll leave that up to two families to answer. All right. Go ahead,
I would say I'm sorry, Judy. We've been very pleasantly surprised. Our girls have felt very supported. I felt like on our end for our kids, it really was pretty seamless, the transition to online classes. They have had very responsive professors when they've had questions. So I would say we've been very pleased with what we've had our students go through.
I think so. My daughter, being a dance major, it's been a very creative online class experience. But I give her professors a lot of credit. She's actually hilariously, she has a series of dance classes. She's in physiology, which again would normally have a lab component, and then a history of hip hop. So they've all gone well. She has videoed herself doing a dance in her bathroom. It was called a site-specific dance. She's felt like she's had really good access to her professors. JMU, I think, has been extraordinarily flexible about how they delivered the content, which I think as a parent appreciate. They extended break by a week to really give their professors time to sort out how to do it. And as a parent, that really mattered. We happen to have another college student at another university going through this. And I can tell you, when I compare the two, JMU has handled it far better. So, I think it's certainly not what any of us wish, but we're very happy with how it's going.
Great. So let's do the second question from Omar. Student that just, I think, deposited. Are there opportunities for internships in and around JMU? Anyone who has had an experience with their students with internships yet? I can answer if others haven't, but who has that experience? It's like Kathy's reaching here.
It's sort of related. Our daughter was studying in London this past semester, and JMU helped her secure an internship while she was there. And that transition was seamless. She took her classes, they figured out her schedule, so she was able to take the internship, and it all went seamlessly.
Okay.
The other thing I can mention is our daughter is a pre-PT minor, and there are shadowing. I know, like, she's going to be shadowing when kids actually get back to campus. There are shadowing opportunities for that. They do a nice job with the pre-health folks who need to have those shadow hours. JMU has a lot of connections into that community within Harrisonburg and at Centara, which is the hospital there. So I can at least speak to that.
And Tim, I can't speak to Harrisonburg, but I do know that JMU is heavily involved in internships when kids go home, students go home for the summer. So whether that's Northern Virginia, New York, Pennsylvania, Richmond, Hampton Roads, that a lot of companies are bringing on interns from JMU and working with the university when they do come home.
And I would just say, since I oversee career and academic planning, we have a huge network because of all the JMU alumni around the world, across the country, that's where a lot of students get those from, is those connections that we're able to use. So I'm going to keep going. We have a number coming in now. Judy and Gavin, this one might come to you. My daughter's going to be a health services major. How long does she have to decide which pre-professional track she is interested in? That's from TJ.
So in our daughter's case, she actually knew at the outset that she wanted pre-physical therapy, but I would say you have time, honestly, although you do get an advisor for your pre-professional track that is specific to that. They don't usually start having kind of heavy duty follow-up till you've gotten, I think it's about 10 credits in that particular subject. If your daughter is going to be a health services major, she's going to be getting a lot of the prerequisites that you have to have kind of for almost all of the pre-health track things. Like everybody has to take a certain amount of chemistry and a certain amount of bio. So I would say she for sure has until at least some point in sophomore year to kind of sort that. And I think there are kids who ultimately decide even a little later.
Anyone else want to weigh in on that one? If not, we can move on. All right. As a first-time parent of a college student, do you know when incoming freshmen can start registering for fall classes? That's from Lisa. I can take that unless someone else just, okay. So the one book that goes out to students after they register has all that information. So they will register early in the summer. They'll have that opportunity. We're finishing up current registration for all of our current students now. And then there's a break, sort of sort through, figure out what spots we need to create in courses, what courses we have to add to make room for everyone. And then that'll happen earlier in the summer. But the one book will do all of that and explain all that process. The one book is literally what it's called, one book that really is everything that you'll need to walk through that process. So, all right, that cheated. I took a parent question. Any of you, I think maybe I'll have the friends answer this one. What is the role of the Parents Council and how does one join?
Well, the Parents Council serves as an advisory liaison between the parent body and the university. So it's really just an opportunity for you to build your network as well. We do things like get a kind of behind the scenes look of what's happening at the university. We also help host things like the first year send-off that I'm sure that you've heard about. We talk to parents, we go to college fairs, things of that nature, just to answer questions, particularly about kind of like what we're doing now, just to kind of give you an idea of what happens at the university, kind of help with the transition as well. The way that you become a parent council member is that there is an application process that you can actually fill out online. And then you'll be contacted by the parent relations office. And so it's a process that takes a few weeks, and then we notify, where the Office of Parent Relations notifies you to let you know if you've been selected to serve on council. But one of the great things about it, just being a parent at JMU, whether you're on the parent council or not, there are so many ways that you can plug into the university. We've mentioned internships. They're always open to receiving suggestions for internships. So it's just many ways to plug in, and the parent council is just one.
All right. Then the next one we will do is from Alice. Harrisonburg is small and charming. Do city kids ever struggle with their rural surroundings? My husband is an alum, but he came from a similar hometown. Who wants to handle the Harrisonburg question? Looks like the daughters are going to start.
Sure, why not? Thanks. I think as far as the town of Harrisonburg, it's really opened up to the university. If you look at what happens to the town population when school is not in session, it gets really small. And the town has done a really good job of working with the university. There's a lot of activities downtown. There's not a wall between the campus and the town. When you talk about the services, whether it's police or security, they both work in concert. You don't find that there's conflicts. I think both are working with each other to make sure that, let's face it, we're dealing with 18, 19, 22-year-olds, that when issues do come up, they work together so that it doesn't get contentious. We both went to JMU. We love the town. I mean, it's great. The restaurants, the cultural activities, the outdoor activities that are open to you, the things that you can rent at UREC to take advantage of some of the natural surroundings, whether that's kayaks, tents, backpacking equipment. We really think it's a great fit. Harrisonburg is just a great city.
And I'll, because we've got a lot of questions on the queue here, we'll only do one set for these. The only thing I'll add to that is that for me, JMU is sort of the just right kind of a school. It's just far enough away from a big city, but just close enough to get there. As someone from Northern Virginia myself, I always joke that it was just far enough away from my mom that she wouldn't come every weekend, but just close enough to get there if I needed her. So I just, it's one of those things where you can still get those places if you need them. TJ is next up, and I think I may just tackle this one because the answer is we don't know yet. Is TJ, are there any family restrictions on move-in day? What I would tell you is that move-in day is 4 months from, basically 4 months from today. So we have plenty of time to figure that out. We're going to be watching and paying attention to all that's going on in the world and going along in the Commonwealth before we make those decisions. But we will be incredibly focused on the health and safety and well-being of our students, and every decision we make will be based on that. So I can't really give you a lot on move-in day other than I'm looking forward to it. So the next one is an easy one. So anyone could take this. Can freshmen have cars? It's a one-word answer. There's a no, there's a couple no's. So no cars for freshmen. And then we've got several registration questions, so we'll lump those together. And since it's a few of them, we'll see if people want to share, two different groups want to share. Is it difficult to register for classes, especially for incoming freshmen? And how do people manage that process with their students?
They do a nice job with the one book and also with webinars explaining how the registration process happens. There's a schedule planner on the platform that you use for registering that my daughter has used every semester, and it spits out like multiple hundreds of options for all the classes that she might want. They do set aside spots for freshmen in the more typically freshman classes. So for those of you who are on social media and are seeing people, worrying about whether there will be spots for their freshmen, my daughter had no issue getting her classes. Typically at Springboard, which I believe Tim is online this year, but typically at Springboard, and I assume the same will happen this year, their first year advisor will meet with them. In my daughter's case, she had read all of the requirements really carefully. She thought she had it all down, and she had missed one for her living learning community. Her advisor adjusted her schedule right there on the spot. Not a problem. She's never had an issue having a very full schedule. My kid tends to take extra credits because she's just weird. So it's just never been a problem. And she's not in the honors college. And I want to be clear that she did not come in with a lot of credits because we're from Massachusetts, where dual enrollment's like not a thing. So she came in with maybe 2 classes worth of credits. So she was a later registration, and she's always been fine.
Our daughter Ryan said basically her advice to herself over the years was, you have to be flexible. You can't look for the perfect schedule. You may have to take an 8 o'clock class. You might have to have classes Monday through Friday. You might have to take an evening class, but as long as you're flexible, it's not been a problem. And her advisors have always been there to answer every question, help walk her through it, get her what she needs. And she's completely on track to graduate in 2021.
All right. The only thing I'll add is that you're still last when you're in your first year. You're the last group to do it. So that you are not going to get the perfect schedule. Usually when I talk to students, they're talking about wanting the perfect schedule, and the perfect schedule will be really great when you get it your second semester senior year. So it does take time, and you are the last to register. So the next question is around dining from Trish. What's the difference between dining dollars and Jack card or punches? Maybe if anyone wants to share sort of dining dollars versus punches and how that works or your students' experience.
I'll take a stab at it. So when you use your punches or your Jack card, that's because you purchased a specific meal plan. And so Tim maybe could elaborate more about that, the specific plans. But dining dollars, or there's even something called Flex Account, allows you to put money onto an account for your student, and they're able to purchase food from different on-campus dining facilities.
Yeah, I think the only other thing that I would just add is that the meal plans themselves, which are great. I know when our first daughter went, we had the 3 meals a day plan. I would tell you, you don't need that if you know your child. That at that point, please think about other options, whether it's 2 or then the flexible options that Gina just shared.
Yeah, I would share when I came, there was a 20 meal plan, and I never ate breakfast. Mom's dismay. Unless she made it, I didn't eat breakfast. So having that flexibility I think is important. We've also added a new plan this year that I'm calling the athlete plan, which is probably not appropriate, but I'll call it that because it's the unlimited plan. You can go into D Hall or E Hall as many times as you want all day long. If you want a cookie, just walk in, swipe in, go get your cookie, walk back out again. So there are 2 plans that have that option because we actually heard from students that's what they wanted. So we really adjusted the plans to allow for that. And then I want to talk about, I think Jennifer has a question for us about the advice on supporting your children as they first semester transition, stress to do with that transition coming from home to college. This is a pretty big one, so I'm going to ask if all 3 families would be willing to answer, because I do think this is a big transition in their lives, and if you can help, and this is what everyone's getting ready to do.
So as far as stress goes, it's going to happen. The best advice we could give is just have your students go in with an open mind. They probably have some friends from high school that are at the school, but embrace your new roommate, embrace your suite mates, get to know them. We've always felt when it came to roommates to go ahead and try to find a roommate that you didn't know in high school. That opens your friend group up, exponentially. And throw yourself out there. There's activity fairs, there's things to get involved with. And I think the more you get involved, the less you're going to miss home. JMU is a very welcoming environment. There's a ton of stuff to do. I think overall the campus kind of grows on you and you just become very outgoing. And you should just go in knowing that, whether it's the freshman orientation or first year orientation. Get to know the people in your residence halls and start with that group and kind of grow it. And also as parents, I think parents have gone from helicopter parents to snowplow parents, where you're trying to clear everything out of the way to make sure everything's going to be perfect. But college is more than just education. It's learning how to live on your own and go through those things. So,
and realize that first semester is quite a transition. Don't get on them about grades. It's very different than high school. What they're doing socially, it's learning curve for parents and students. And just realize that there's going to be stress. There's going to be good. There's going to be bad. Just embrace it and go with the flow, and just trust in your parenting and in your child that they're doing what they should be.
I think the only other thing that I would add is just, being open, having an open conversation with them about it, not, encouraging them not to suffer in silence. If they are experiencing stress, to, find someone, whether it's, a family member or a trusted professor, but just to reach out if they're feeling a level of stress, to just not suffer in silence.
And the university has great programs and support associated with that for the students. The other, though, to Jimmy's earlier comment, that I would just reinforce involvement. I would tell you that the more our kids got involved on campus, in clubs and others, all of a sudden, the things and worries started to dissipate because their network was stronger, their support groups were stronger, and they had more outlets versus feeling as though that they were on an island by themselves.
Yeah, I think the outreach is a huge thing. I'll share a little bit of our experience. Our daughter has a bit of anxiety. And our first visiting weekend, we went there. She basically had a meltdown. Was telling us, I don't have anybody to sit and have lunch with. That 2 years further on is, wow, I wish I had time to sit and just be quiet at lunch and not have people bothering me all the time. So, and she achieved that and we encouraged her, reach out, go talk to people, get involved. And she did that. It transformed for her the experience.
The other thing I would add as a parent that's really important for first semester, and of course all our kids are coming from different backgrounds and whatnot, but a lot of times kids come in and they've always been that person who did really well in high school and took all the classes and did all the things. And my daughter certainly fit a lot of that profile. And she was looking at the requirements for her major and her minor and all the gen eds and going, I don't have enough time. And I was like, sweetie, you got plenty of time. So I would encourage, take a full course load, but probably not like 17 credits or 19 credits, don't go nuts. I always encourage parents to think about, if the child is really strong, a humanities kid and not so strong on math or science, but they're going to have to take a math or science. Maybe they don't take that math or science first semester. Maybe they take it second semester, to let them sort of play to their strengths a little bit and be a little more comfortable in their environment, because they're learning a whole ton of new things that have nothing to do with the classroom. The other thing I would add, and my husband already mentioned that our daughter does have an anxiety disorder. If your child is coming in with any kind of underlying background challenge or issue, please don't think that it's going to magically dissipate when they get to JMU's campus. You will set your child up for much better success if you and your child take the time to register them with disability services before they arrive on campus. In our daughter's case, she was, we made sure she was set up with a therapist before she arrived on campus. Those are all really important steps that can really help with a transition, because, unfortunately, ADD doesn't dissipate when you walk onto JMU's campus. So I would just say that.
And I would add to that just briefly, we've called it the new leaf approach. You can't turn over a new leaf and suddenly all the things that, you've managed your whole life are just going to not be there for you. So again, I think working with our disability services office, working with a counseling center on the front end is good, because it is a new environment with different supports. Your closest support systems are family normally, and they're not there. So really work during the summer with us, and we can help you make sure that that success can happen right away. Judy and Gavin, I think I'm going to give this one back to you, talking about regional clubs for students and families that are outside of Virginia, outside of Virginia folks. New Jersey, for example, is one thing Cynthia's asking about, but in general, if you could talk about that.
To our knowledge, no, there are not regional clubs, but I do know JMU has clubs for everything, including drinking chocolate milk. So students can certainly create an affinity club, and it's not a bad idea. It hadn't I don't know that it ever occurred to our daughter.
She wanted to get away.
Yeah, she wanted an adventure, which is part of why she picked a school in a different part of the country. But I could see there being value in having that sort of an affinity club.
But there are regional connections. There's a thing called JMU Rides where students can post looking for rides. She was driving back this Christmas break, and she was able to get ride shares both directions to fill her car.
Yeah.
So.
And also for alumni and others, if anyone else wants to weigh in, there are regional alumni groups all around the country as well where people can connect.
Right. You want to
yes, there's chapters all across the country, and the chapters encourage parents of students. You don't have had to go to JMU. We want to meet you. We want to welcome you into the JMU family. So we encourage anybody. You can check out on the alumni website. There's chapters just about everywhere, especially there's a couple in Richmond, in Northern Virginia, and of course there's lots in Virginia, but we encourage parents to come out to that because we can do the same thing we're doing now, help answer questions and just welcome you into the JMU family. So find out about them and please come.
Yeah, there's the chapters all across the country that get together for meetings and social events, and also during football season there's watch parties all across the country, and that's a good way to bond with JMU fellow JMU fans as well.
Yeah, I think the only other piece that I would just add is the fact that I know with all of the classes as well as the parent groups, Facebook and social media is out there, so you can also reach out through those venues to then connect with folks that might be from your area. If then, you're outside of Virginia and looking for either a ride home, other questions or concerns that might be going on. So I would tell you, it truly feels like home for the students and for the parents in the community that JMU creates for us.
And for Parents Council, you can search on the Parents Council website for people in your area. You can search by city, by state. So you can reach out to members of the Parents Council and they will be happy to help you any way they can.
Yes.
All right, next question, we're going to talk about safety. We'll see if one family wants to take the safety question. Is JMU's campus safe? What's your perspective as a parent when you're out and about? The daughters are getting the next question, so I'll block them for this one and see who else wants to answer this question instead.
I remember very vividly our oldest daughter, her first year, she did have a class that was later in the evening. And it was a very real concern for her, like, will I be safe coming back? So we just really talked through it with her. We encouraged her to, make friends with her classmates, find out if there was anyone else in her area that was walking back at the same time. And she found that, there ended up being a whole group of them that would actually go and have ice cream and things after class. So she had no problem finding someone. There have been instances where maybe she didn't have someone to walk back with, but we encouraged her to, to call for a ride. There's campus security that's there that's willing to help out. She's also done phone buddies, someone, they kind of meet in the middle. So, but overall, she's felt very, safe. So I think that's been the huge takeaway for us as parents, very comforting to know that, that the campus overall is very safe.
All right, we've got a question about the sorority experience. So I thought I would have the daughters take that one since the daughters have a daughter in a sorority. So, sorry, I had to do the daughter thing at some point.
Yeah.
Yes, our daughter is in a sorority. She happened to rush her freshman year, first semester. A lot of people are not sure about that. For her, it was one of those things. She put herself out there. She made a lot of new friends, and she loved the whole idea of the sorority. And she actually went on to be an advisor in her sophomore year. And it's not a deep South sort of stress. You're not submitting pictures and all that kinds of things. And my advice to any parent whose daughter is going through sorority rush or even fraternity rush, trust the process. People feel like sometimes they think that they know where they should be or where they want to be, and it doesn't work out that way, but it works out just about every time the way it should. So trust the process. And JMU does a great job of managing it and keeping the kids focused on school. They schedule things around classes and things like that.
Greek life is just one way to make a large university seem a little bit smaller. And it's not so much, you're associated with just the people in your Greek organization. You get to know the entire Greek organization. So that's helpful. She went abroad and studied in London, and she spent a lot of time with some students in other sororities, and they got along great. You also, like a lot of the organizations on campus, develop lifelong friends. So here we go, Tim. Tim and I, Dr. Miller and I were fraternity brothers back in the day at Theta Chi. And it's just kind of one of those things. It has a connection, and it gives us a reason to get back together when we're back on campus, and some common stories and experiences.
And to allay parents' fears, Greek life is not equivalent to partying. There's a lot of philanthropy, and they do a lot of good in the community. So don't fear that it's just about partying. They do a lot of really good things. They have strong philanthropic ties. And our daughter happens to be a Theta, and they work with CASA, which, and they have fundraisers all throughout the year, and they're recognized nationally by them. So it's not all about partying. So don't fear.
All right. We've got some out-of-state focus. 2 questions on this from Michael and John. So Judy and Gavin, I'm going to ask you to take this. So coming from the Northeast, was it difficult to make friends? And then the follow-up is really similar, just the fitting in. Do they fit in readily? How do they make those connections despite there being a number of students at JMU from Virginia?
I've been such a friendly and open campus. I mean, everybody smiles, everybody's friendly, everybody holds the door. Coming from the North, that's a little weird. Yes, we're not used to that kind of behavior. People think, why are you being nice? Why are you smiling at me? But yeah, I think, and she's found it so welcoming and so open. She even came back with a bit of a Southern accent, which we've had to kind of get her to lose.
The other thing I would add that I think for out-of-state students in particular, it can be really, one of the things when you go to a campus that is relatively large, which JMU, 18 to 20,000 undergrad, not a small school, is to find ways to kind of create a space within that space. And since you're coming from out of state, depending on which state, like Massachusetts, there's not a ton of people from our state. There's a decent number, but it's like 650, I think, across the years. She joined a living learning community. She applied for that early on in her housing choices. I think that was really beneficial. The meltdown that my husband mentioned during Parents Weekend really related to her feeling like she was just starting to get her legs under her, just starting to find her group of friends, but people already were like rushing to sign off-campus leases. And so one of the things we did during that Parent Weekend to take that off the table for her was say, you're going to live on campus for 2 years. And that was an amazing thing because it really gave her the time to sort of find her fit, which she absolutely did. She loved her roommates for sophomore year, has continued to live with them off campus. So I think it's really, when you're from out of state, it is important to give your child the permission to have the time to find their group, and to accept that they're going to do that, and to remind them to go to, try new things, but also to not let them feel so pressured by everybody around them who maybe is already, knows people. So.
Great. Well, that's a great segue. We're going to handle a couple housing questions, and then we'll come back to a question on diversity here in a second. So we got asked about signing up for 2 years. That is an option students can do now while they're going through the process, or they can do that later. So if anyone else wants to expand on that. And also the question is, how do you feel about the quality of on-campus housing, and the question about air conditioning? So Gina and Wilson, do you want to answer a little bit about some housing pieces?
Sure. I would tell you, so one, I'll start with the last one around air conditioning. We had a daughter that in her dorm, both of them actually for freshman year, didn't have air conditioning. And this is one of those where the mountains are your friends. I would tell you, when they first moved in, it might have been a little warm and they had a fan that they might have had in their room. But quickly, then the weather shifts, so it is not a problem. So that's one. I think from a housing perspective, it was great in the fact that each of them, one, connected, as I think all the other parents have talked about, within their suite mates, roommates, and others. The housing, one, they have faculty that comes in and it's clean, well kept, all of those things, and secure. As a parent, if you don't have your child with you, you can't get into those buildings. So going back to parts of the security question, and you felt that they were extremely safe. So the housing has been very, very good from our vantage point.
And I'll just say on the second year thing, as the guy who oversees residence life, I'll go a little research. There is a lot of research that talks about the longer you live on, the more quality of life it is. You tend to do better in classes. I also just being very honest, despite working with college students, I don't think 19-year-olds are ready to figure this stuff out and figure out how to pay bills and do all that. And I think there's value in having someone else worrying about that for another year. Yeah. There will be, before students even move in the fall, the off-campus apartment complexes will be after them to sign leases, and we'll tell them if they don't sign the lease immediately, there'll be nowhere to live. I will just dispel that and say that every year there are thousands of empty beds off campus. So it is, I hate to tell you that real estate folks aren't telling you the truth, but I'll leave it at that. So let's go back to the diversity question. Does JMU have a lot of diversity? What kinds of things are there for diverse students or students of color to be involved in?
I would say there are a lot of things for diverse students to be involved in. There are plenty of resources as well. One that comes to mind is the Center for Multicultural Student Services. Is always a great place for them to go and get connected. There are a multitude of different clubs and other organizations. JMU also has they're also part of, have the sororities and fraternities from the Divine Nine. So those opportunities for sorority and fraternity involvement are also available. Can you think of anything else to add? There's the Black Student Alliance. Yeah. I mean, there's probably any type of diversity that you can think of. You can probably find something at JMU that will support your student. So I would say that we have been very pleased, coming as alums from JMU back in '92, we always felt very supported within the JMU community. And I would have to say the same thing has echoed, for our daughters as well. They have felt that they've had plenty of other people that look like them, that share the same experience. So I would say we're in good shape at JMU.
I think the only other piece would just be for going back to that involvement. So you've got to seek those services and then those networks out. So then that way you can feel more comfortable. So whether they want to be in a fraternity or a sorority or just want to be involved in other multicultural activities is a great way for them to lean in. So then that way they don't feel isolated as they might could possibly based upon being a diversity student.
So I'm going to jump in and ask my favorite parent question, and then we'll get back to those that are on waiting here is, and we'll have all of you answer this because I'm moderating. So how did your relationship evolve with your student, and how do you stay connected to your student? How often do you talk, text? So how did it evolve, and how often do you talk, text, however you call being connected and talking? I know I shouldn't say I talk to my mom all the time and it's a text. So however you define that as family. Why don't we start with the friends?
I've got a different answer, so go ahead.
I would say we've kept the connection with our daughters. I'd say the cell phone is like the greatest thing. Initially, there were, you would get more calls, and then it kind of petered off, as they started to kind of feel their way there. But we still, to this day, we get lots of text messages, pictures of things that they're doing. So I would say we're still pretty connected.
Yeah, I would say as a dad, mom would get more text messages than I would, but that's okay. I would get the money text message, I think. But what I would say to Gina's comment is that what you noticed is that as they were making that transition, you might have gotten more. And actually don't feel bad if you don't get a lot. That means that they're fitting in and finding their own space. So when the text messages kind of dwindled a little bit, or you go for a little while, you might pick up the phone and call. But otherwise, then that just means that they're finding their way and they're doing just fine. So don't be alarmed if it kind of tails off at points in time.
Judy and Gavin, you want to go ahead?
So we have two kids in college, two very different experiences. Our JMU kid, I don't think there's been a day when we haven't heard something from her, text or otherwise. Our other kid, daughter, I think there was a period of about a month where I counted a total of 15 words we'd received from her. So it depends on the kid. It really does. I think we've stayed connected to both of them in different ways. But the kid at JMU, we're very connected. We know what's going on with that.
The one I would also add, because this can, I know the question is about parents, but there can be a lot of challenges for younger siblings who are left at home. And our, JMU daughter is our oldest of 3, and the baby sister in particular is very connected to her and was really struggling with the idea of her sister going so far away. So, we took the approach of, we have a scheduled FaceTime time with her each week, so that they get to connect, and also the JMU kid gets to see the pets, which is the other thing. I think she misses the pets more than us, and we get requests for pictures of pets. But that's also, if you have a kid who's really attached to a cat or a dog and you haven't heard from them for a while, this worked with our middle daughter. Send them a picture of the cat or dog, and then you'll get a text back.
Maybe.
Most likely.
All right.
We actually had a different experience. We were at the Legacy Luncheon, and we were dropping our daughter off, and she got all teary-eyed and she said, "Mom, I'm not going to be able to talk to you every day." And I almost bit my tongue off because I was like, "Talk to me every day." Like for about a year, all I heard was, "What's for dinner?" or "Where's my track uniform?" So I was like, okay, this will be fine. And I hear from her a lot. It might be just, "Hi, how are you? My day's going like this." But I actually hear from her more now. It's not necessarily hour-long conversations. It might be 2 minutes. She might be walking to class sometimes, just wasting time waiting for the bus or something. But she's been good about keeping in touch. But like Wilson said, if they don't call, that's good too. Because they're involved and they're moving on with friends. But the cell phone does make keeping in touch with them so easy, because it can be a quick text or super quick phone call.
So then we'll have one more question from the audience, and then I'll do one more wrap up. So a question about RAs. How involved are they? Do they really check on things, offer support? What's your experience when with your students with the RAs or the residence hall staff?
If you don't mind, I actually was an RA when I was at JMU. A little bit of experience, but RAs are really there for the benefit of the students. They're not there to be a police force. Yes, they need to make sure that certain things from a safety perspective are in place, but they're really there to ensure that kind of no one gets left behind, that they're eyes and ears and a liaison with the university. So I can't speak highly enough about the Office of Residence Life. The programs that the RAs do, the way they handle orientation, the inclusiveness, the way they're reaching out, they're looking for people who might be loners or need some support. So I would say nothing but props for RAs. Really a great program.
Gina and Wilson, anything from your daughter's experience in the halls?
I would have to say that I remember particularly from my middle daughter, she recalled her RA always checking in. If she hadn't seen her in a couple of days, would come and knock on the door. And they just both girls were very fortunate that they had very involved RAs that, would check on them, make sure everything's okay. But, very, very kind of like a big sister, or a big brother kind of relationship.
Great. So then let's wrap up here. I'm going to give you a 2-part question. We'll start with Judy and Gavin. Sort of in a couple words, describe sort of JMU, how you feel about JMU and your approach. And second, what do you wish someone had told you as you're in the summer before your students started?
Oh, that's hard.
Yeah, sorry.
Why we love
Give us an easy one to answer.
The first part of it's really easy. What do we love about JMU? I would honestly say pretty much everything. Especially because we can now compare it to an in-state school for our middle daughter, and the level of communication. Dr. Miller, who is freakishly available to parents in ways that make me worry for his well-being at times. But I mean, it's a place that we have honestly always felt really good about the tuition check that we're sending in. Our kid is going to graduate with 157 credits in 4 years' time, so she certainly got her money's worth out of the institution. And even during her moments of struggle, and she's absolutely had them, where she applied for something and didn't get it, or she had changes and things that she wasn't expecting. It gave her the space to have the resilience that she needed. So I think for us, that was amazing. The second part of the question was,
I can't think it will be specific to JMU. It's more specific to first child going away to college. So for anybody that's going through that, just be prepared for there to be ups and downs. It's not all going to be smooth sailing.
And it's okay as a mom to cry, like after you've left JMU's campus. So especially if it's your oldest, if it's your youngest, you might celebrate. But if it's your oldest, it's totally okay to cry once you are out of the school and your kid can't see you. While your kid can see you, upbeat, it's all going to be wonderful. But it's a transition and it's a change. And I'm not going to lie, like September was rough for me as a mom.
Okay, how about Kathy and Jimmy?
I think JMU is probably the happiest place on earth. If you talk to the students, once you get on campus, it's just really just a great experience. As far as lessons, before you go away to school, I would tell you, don't ignore what Dr. Miller said about the off-campus housing. There is so much pressure on incoming freshmen about moving or signing a lease for the next year. There's no reason to do it. So that's something your student's going to be hit with. Tap the brakes, take a deep breath. A lot of people make that decision to move off campus, and it is premature. They end up living with people that they didn't necessarily want to be roommates with for 1 or 2 years. And then also the same thing goes with fraternities and sororities. There'll be, a desire to join one quickly. And sometimes you might join the wrong one because that was your first initial reaction. Take a deep breath. Everything happens for a reason. And so open your mind, take advantage of everything, and make the right decisions for you.
All right, Gina and Wilson, you have the last word.
Well, wow, she's going to let me have the last word?
I'm going to talk after you, but go first. You go first.
What I would say, what's there not to love about JMU? I would kind of summarize it in a couple of buckets. One is the academic preparation that your students will get to be successful in life is unparalleled. And students come out highly skilled, capable, and their connections with the professional worlds to help our students are phenomenal. While they're there, the easiest one word is family. And I would say family not only for your students and the community, but also for the parents. At times you will then go back and those friendships and connections will be lifelong, and everyone truly is there to help each other. So for everyone on the webcast, if you have questions, concerns, please reach out. Don't go and think that it's a crazy question. It's not. Everyone in this JMU community and JMU Nation are here to help and would love for you to be parts of it and excited to welcome you.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
And I'll just end with the one thing I wish I knew was to not overpack. Seriously, as you go into the summer, every little thing that they think they need, they really don't. You end up schlepping it all back home at the end of the year.
I end up schlepping it back home.
So just remind them, you don't need every little, little thing that they think they need. Pack light. There's stores in Harrisonburg.
Agreed. Well, I want to thank our amazing parents for being with us tonight. Thank you all so much for being a part of this. I hope all the folks watching found this to be informative and entertaining. If we're not able to get your questions during this panel, please leave them in the comment section. We'll make sure to respond to those later. And also visit the Choices website for more information. The link will be posted below for you. I hope you have a great rest of the evening. We'll see you in the fall. And thanks everyone again, and go Dukes. Thanks.
Go Dukes.